Not long ago, the value of the 5 companies I'm going to talk about was in the billions. They were among the most powerful companies in the world, but all of them collapsed. In this video, I will explain how once legendary giants went bankrupt. They all share one common point. At number 5 on the list is Enron. The year 2001 was like a nightmare. Before that year, Enron was the 7th largest company in the United States. It was at the top in energy, natural gas, and trading. The problem first started with the company's executives. The executives were walking through the streets of Houston wearing suits more expensive than most people's monthly salaries. They were attracting serious backlash. The company's stock was trading at around $90 per share in 2000. But the critical problem was this. The company's ethics code consisted of a 64-page document personally signed by Enron's CEO. And this CEO was the leader of one of the biggest financial frauds in American history. After investigations, the findings were as follows. Enron executives had been moving billions of dollars of debt through shell companies for years. There were many companies within companies. This situation was described as a chaotic structure heading toward disaster. They were doing this so carefully and professionally that auditors couldn't detect anything. The real story came out in October 2001. The great mystery was suddenly solved. The stock price dropped from $90 to below $1 in just a few weeks. This collapse went down in history as one of the most sensational crashes ever. Enron filed for bankruptcy on December 2, 2001. As you might expect, this was the largest corporate bankruptcy in American history at the time. One of the saddest parts is this. 62% of employees had their entire retirement savings tied to Enron. This means thousands of people lost everything in an instant. There was an unforgettable day for the company. The day I'm talking about was the day they went bankrupt. Employees were given 30 minutes to pack their belongings and leave the building. There was a famous figure at the time, CEO Jeffrey Skilling. He was found guilty of fraud and sentenced to more than 20 years in prison. Enron did not collapse because of failures in the energy sector. It collapsed simply because the people running it lied about everything. At number 4 on the list is Kodak. They will never forget the year 2012. In history, in 1976, Kodak alone controlled 90% of all film sales and 85% of all camera sales in the United States. Do you realize the level of power? That is the peak. At its height in the 1990s, the company's market value exceeded $28 billion. To explain the scale in terms of people, the company had more than 140,000 employees worldwide. Everyone in the world knew the famous yellow Kodak box. The phrase Kodak moment became iconic worldwide and entered everyday language. For those who don't know, at that time it meant a moment worth capturing, something too good to miss. There is an unbelievable part in this legend story. In 1975, Kodak engineer Steve Sasson developed the world's first digital camera in Kodak's own research lab. He quickly presented it to the executives. They were impressed. Although they liked it very much, they shelved the project. This might be the most critical mistake in history. The reason they made this mistake was simple logic. Kodak made its money from film and photo printing. A digital camera was an idea that could destroy their own business. So instead of leading the digital revolution it invented, Kodak chose to continue investing in film. Then technology kept evolving. Between 2000 and 2006, global demand for photographic film dropped by 60%. By 2010, the market had almost completely disappeared. Unfortunately, the legendary Kodak filed for bankruptcy in 2012. In that year, technology had reached this level. In the same year, Instagram was sold to Facebook for $1 billion. It was as if Kodak had invented the future and then watched others turn it into profit. Nothing drains a person more than the things they could have achieved but failed to accomplish. At number 3 on the list is Blockbuster. The year 2010 represents sorrow for them. At its peak, Blockbuster had more than 9,000 stores across 25 countries. The company generated $6 billion in annual revenue. By the standards of that time, it was easily a global giant. There was a time when going to Blockbuster on a Friday night in America to rent a movie was a normal thing people did. It had become a ritual. The company had grown so large that it earned about $800 million a year just from late fees. At that time, if you returned a movie late, you paid $1 per day. People hated these fees. Pay attention here, because when customers start having serious problems, it often marks the beginning of decline. One of those unhappy customers was a man named Reed Hastings. In 1997, he returned the movie Apollo 13 6 weeks late and paid a $40 fine. That experience frustrated him so much that he later said, "That experience was big enough to inspire the idea of a company without late fees." This might be one of the most legendary stories in business history because the name of that company was Netflix. In 2000, Hastings went to Dallas to meet Blockbuster's CEO. He offered to sell Netflix to Blockbuster for $50 million. He was about to make a serious mistake himself. He did not see the future. At that time, Netflix was losing money, so the offer actually seemed reasonable. Blockbuster's CEO rejected the offer. It is definitely one of the most important meetings in business history. A man comes in and offers to sell a company that would become a global giant in 10 years for $50 million, and more interestingly, the offer is rejected. People who attended the meeting later said that Blockbuster executives struggled to hide their laughter. They laughed too early. Just 10 years after that meeting, Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy. Netflix's valuation had exceeded $13 billion. Today, it is worth over $400 billion. The once great company that had the chance to buy Netflix for $50 million no longer exists. At number 2 on the list is WeWork. The year 2023 was a bad period. Adam Neumann founded WeWork in 2010. The idea was elegant. He would lease large office spaces and divide them into smaller, flexible units. Simply put, monthly office rental. The business model sounded very reasonable. In January 2019, SoftBank valued WeWork at $47 billion, an enormous amount for a real estate company. Neumann had convinced investors that WeWork was not a real estate company, but a technology company. According to him, it was a community, a movement, an organization raising the world's consciousness. SoftBank's leader, Masayoshi, told investors the company would become bigger than Google. In 2019, WeWork went public. For those who don't know, going public requires submitting all financial documents. The documents were shocking. In 2018 alone, WeWork lost $1.9 billion. The company signed 10 to 15-year lease agreements while renting to customers on monthly contracts. Mathematically, this was a massive problem. Another critical discovery was that Neumann had sold the trademark rights of the word "we" to his own company for $5.9 million. His own company was paying him millions for a brand he already controlled. This immediately destroyed investor confidence. Within weeks, the company's valuation dropped from $47 billion to below $10 billion. Neumann stepped down as CEO. When he left, he also received a $1.7 billion exit package. Employees who had accepted low salaries in exchange for shares ended up leaving with nothing. WeWork filed for bankruptcy in November 2023. We are at the top of the list. Nokia is number 1. The world remembers the year 2013. In 2007, Nokia was so dominant that it produced more than half of all mobile phones sold globally. Its Symbian operating system held 65% of the global market. Nokia sold its 1 billionth phone in 2005. That is massive. Even the Nokia 1100 alone sold more than 250 million units, making it the best-selling consumer electronic product in history at the time. Nokia was not just a big player in the industry, it was the industry itself. It was far bigger than its competitors. It stood alone at the top, and everyone believed it would stay that way forever. Then, on January 9, 2007, a man named Steve Jobs stepped on a stage in San Francisco and introduced the iPhone. No one realized it at the time, but this move would reshape the entire system and bring down a giant. Nokia executives watched the presentation and did not take it seriously. Nokia engineers consider the iPhone technically weak. No physical keyboard made no sense. The camera was poor, battery life was short. The iPhone was not yet a perfect phone, but it was a completely different type of device, a computer in your pocket that could make calls. Within 2 years, Google launched Android. The smartphone era began rapidly, but Nokia was still building for the previous era. All failures in history come from an inability to adapt. Symbian was slow and outdated. There was little effort to develop something new inside the company. By 2012, Nokia's global market share had dropped from 38% to below 4%. In 2013, Nokia sold its entire phone division to Microsoft for $7.2 billion. Microsoft later wrote off almost all of that investment as a loss. A company that once produced more than half of the world's phones collapsed in a very short time. 5 giant companies, 5 painful collapses. Each failed for different reasons. Enron, fraud. Kodak, fear. Blockbuster, arrogance. WeWork, illusion. Nokia, lack of adaptation. The common point was negligence. The warning signs were there from the very beginning. The most expensive mistakes in business are not the ones no one can see. They are the ones everyone sees but no one takes seriously. One more common mistake remains. What do you think it is? We've reached the end of the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. There are hundreds more stories like this to tell.